Hello, I am Claire Neilson, and this is Stella. This is for the Fall Creative Works and Research with CalU. And this is a poster for my project from last semester's 3D art class in Edinburgh University's program. And I did this sculpture to introduce a new perspective to the world we live in. I was hoping that it could allow the viewer to take a few steps back from where we are in the grander scheme of things and just appreciate us and how we really impact everything around us, because we truly do. And this project, I was very surprised after it was finished how many people would go up to it to look at it, but immediately go to the earth and just stare at the earth and be like, hey, that's us. That's us right there, that little globe right there in between those two spirals. And I thought that was so funny because I wanted everybody to appreciate everything, like just take a few steps back, like I said before. But after they appreciated the earth, then they took a few steps back and appreciated everything else. And they actually called it the universal wormhole, I believe. And I did not think that was appealing in the slightest. So I changed the name to Stella, which is a lot easier to remember. And I tend to do that with my other projects anyway. I named them after people names. And so to create this project, I had to first create 35 sketches from abstracting an elephant toy. The requirements were to take a toy from a box of toys and abstract it through gradual abstraction. So for the spiral one, every picture was very slowly being abstracted. I'm sorry, I don't have the sketches with me, but I found the elephant toy in the box and saw so many different abstractions for it because it had so many different unique shapes that composed it. And so I eventually went with this one, which was the most simplistic one, I think, compared to the other ones. But I think it really made a bigger impact than the other ones would have. And so to create this, I chose the spiral sketch and sketched more sketches out of that to really try to calculate how big the spirals should be, how long it should be, and then we went to carving. So I would have to stack up slabs of styrofoam, and you can see some of the blue styrofoam in the top left picture, and you had to glue them together and then just draw on them. It's kind of hard to describe the sculpting process, but you really had to think in the 3D sense instead of 2D, which is kind of difficult, but I absolutely love doing it. And you take these stacks of styrofoam and carve out very small pieces of the sculpture. So for this one, I carved out basically like, if you can picture a donut, I did half of the donut first, and I would take pieces of that and then glue them together, but slanted, to start creating the spiral. And then I did that for almost all of them. The top little tiny spirals, I took a cone and made out of styrofoam and carved out the spirals out of the cone, which was, I think, the most fun because that was a lot of thinking and calculations. And then after that, after gluing them together, you can see some of the seams in the Edinburgh University Art Department Celebrates 100 Years picture. In like the bottom left of the sculpture, you can see how it's glued together using Durham's. And Durham's is the putty that I'm also covering it, like painting. And that gives it a very hard surface. And after covering it with Durham's, you could then sand it. to make it very smooth. And I wanted that effect because it kind of allowed it to be more shiny, in my opinion. And so after that, you could paint it. And that was the most fun, in my opinion, most fun part of the process. And so I first covered it entirely with black, and then I created the galaxy by basically taking my fingers, dipping them in some paint, and then just freckling my fingers all over the sculpture. And you can see in like the top right sculpture, the bottom right of the sculpture, like the blue and purples that are very light, because I didn't want it to take away from any of the planets. That's what I did to get that effect. And then after that, I took a paintbrush and dipped it in like watered down white paint, and then freckled on the sculpture as well to give it the stars. And then it came to the planet making, which was basically the same exact process, except for it required a lot more research on how the planets looked and their size comparisons. I could not do the actual sizes, unfortunately. I would have loved to, but that would have been far too large, especially the sun. And so I did a general idea of how large they are. I wish that could have been more accurate, but I'm still happy with how it turned out. And the project overall was very intense. It's very large. You can see in the picture, and I actually have it behind me right now just to show how tall it is as well. It's huge, and I think it really leaves a larger impact on the viewer, in my opinion, because it's just so large and it's more memorable that way, in my opinion. I'm not saying that smaller projects are bad, because I love smaller projects as well. I either work really large or very small. And it was so impactful that it made the Erie Times magazine. And I was part of the 100 Years of Art with Edinburgh during my freshman year. It was all so much, and it was very exciting, and I was so happy to be a part of it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I really hope that it can impact you the same way how it impacts everybody else that has already given me their feedback. I really hope that you can look at it in a way that's thinking outside of the box. So thank you for your time.